Hello neighbor, I'm Robert Burns, and we're going to continue now with installment 2 of me sounding off on Attorney General James D. Buddy Caldwell. All right, at the conclusion of our installment 1, we had relayed the fact that CNSI had won the contract for providing the Medicaid services for the state of Louisiana, and I might add that they run it by a wide margin. It was about 45 or 50 million dollars to the next closest bid, which happened to be a subsidiary of Xerox, which bid the next closest bid, but it was about 45 or 50 million dollars apart. So Louisiana citizens would save a substantial amount of money through this CNSI contract. Now, remember, Molina, the incumbent provider, was deemed not to even have the technical expertise for the modern day contract specifications as they wanted, and so Molina was not invited to participate in the bidding process. Now, as you might expect, the losing bidders typically are not going to walk away happy from this. Because they've put an enormous amount of energy and resources. I mean, you don't just fall out of bed and say, here, let's scribble a number on a sheet of paper and submit it and see where we go. There is an awful lot of work that goes on behind the scenes, emulation process, scenarios run, what if scenarios, what if this, and the companies come up with a bid that they feel that they can comfortably live with. Let's just say that the Xerox subsidiary said, look, something's got to be wrong here. Okay, they believe there was some favoritism extended. There's just no way this could be done. And Molina, of course, was none too pleased that it wasn't even invited to the table. Consequently, both companies filed protest. And I'm not going to go into all the details of what all you go through in a protest, but basically the Division of Administration has to review the protest. And the Division of Administration did review the protest of these two companies, and they found no merit to them, and so they said, we will be going forward with CNSI. Also, I'm just going to say that there was also a brief investigation by the U.S. Attorney's Office, who subpoenaed all of the records pertaining to the bidding process for all companies. That investigation was quickly closed. It went nowhere. It found no evidence of wrongdoing. But I will point out the important thing is that it did happen. There was a brief period where the feds looked into this by way of subpoenaing the records. The U.S. Attorney did so. Now, let's go back to Steve Smith, a.k.a. John Canego, okay? Mr. Smith was recruited in 2010, late 2010, December. Mr. Ahmed said, hey, you're not quite what we thought you were, $50,000 reduction in salary, and you're not going to report to me, you're going to report to an intermediary between us, none of which made Mr. Smith very happy. So here's the time frame on that. That took place in December of 2010. In April of 2011, Mr. Ahmed noted that Mr. Smith's salary had not been reduced in the payroll system from $250,000 to $200,000, and so he submitted the paperwork to make the change, to make his salary $200,000 rather than $250,000. In August of 2011, Mr. Smith began reporting to the intermediary, not to Mr. Ahmed directly. Now, during this time frame, Mr. Smith is putting on the front of being a happy employee, being very pleased with CNSI. They still made him the project manager of this whole transition. Okay, he's still the one that's basically in charge of this whole thing, and he's also going out to states like Colorado and Mississippi, saying, look, this is a great company, great product, we would really urge your state to go with this. We can do great things for you if you'll give us an opportunity to get to the table. We're doing it in Louisiana, we can do it in your state as well. And I might add, they had also done tremendously well in the state of Washington. It's one of the reasons they were brought into the Louisiana bidding process. So this is what all CNSI is seeing on the surface. Okay, that they've got Mr. Steve Smith out here, he's doing things, he's out here helping promote us in Colorado, helping promote us in Mississippi. Well, toward the end of 2011, late November or so of 2011, Mr. Smith said, look, I really, I appreciate everything y'all have done for me, appreciate this opportunity, but look, I'm going to move on. I'm going to go in a different direction, and so I'm leaving CNSI. Well, CNSI said, look, please just don't leave us hanging. We've put a big investment in you. We've got a lot of confidence in you. And so they said, look, will you just hang with us at least through the period through which we, kind of get the transition a little further along in Louisiana? And if you'll do so, at the time you do walk out, we want to provide you with an incentive. We're gonna give you a $50,000 success bonus. Okay, so Mr. Smith says, okay, I'll do that. I'll hang around. Now that's what's going on the surface. That's all CNSI is seeing. They're obviously disappointed that they're losing Mr. Smith's services, and they value them so much because of the critical time nature of this. And we're in the transition that they say, look, if you'll just hang with us a little while, you'll get this $50,000 success bonus. Now, that was at the end of 2011. Just fast forward just slightly. February 29th of 2012 is the date that Mr. Smith did part ways, formally. He literally physically left. He moved to Indianapolis, Indiana. Do not know what he may have been procuring in Indianapolis, but that's where he moved to. And he got his $50,000 success bonus, okay? Again, this is what all's going on the surface that CNSI is seeing. What CNSI is not seeing is that Mr. Norm Nichols, in early December of 2011, he telephoned Steve Smith. Now, Norm Nichols, remember, is the president of Molina. That's the incumbent Medicaid services provider for the state of Louisiana. And remember, that's the company that was told, hey, we don't think you're qualified to bid, all right? So naturally, Mr. Nichols is not real happy, okay? And so he makes a little telephone call to Steve Smith and said, hey, tell you what, how about you and I meet for dinner? Let's see if we can't talk a little bit, okay? And so they do. Norm Nichols, the president of Molina, sits down and has a little powwow at a Mexican restaurant one evening in early December of 2011. Now, CNI doesn't have a clue this is going on, okay? All right. So Norm Nichols says, all right, look, as you know, we filed a protest. It's been denied, but let me tell you something. I'm not going away, all right? Let me tell you something. I'm a long ways from being done here, all right? You got to realize, I told you, these high-level positions he goes in and get involved with. Now we're talking about the president of a publicly traded company. So you can imagine when you start talking about egos, they've had this contract for years. Now all of a sudden, DHH is saying we don't even believe you have the expertise to continue with this contract. Oh boy, talk about a smackdown. And we're going with this much smaller upstart because they have the technical expertise to save us a bunch of money. So Norm Nichols is not happy, okay? And you already know Steve Smith is not happy. He is seething. Although he doesn't give that appearance to CNSI folk, he gives the appearance of the dutiful employee. And so Steve Smith said, sure, Mr. Nichols, let's have a little dinner meeting, okay? So they have this dinner meeting in early 2011, and obviously, as I just said, Mr. Nichols said, oh, I'm a long ways from being done. And so Steve Smith said, hey, I can bring something to the table. I believe there were some improprieties that went on here, and so they begin to conspire, all right, to yank this contract, to have Louisiana terminate the contract. And bear in mind, you've got heavy motivation on Mr. Nichols' part, and Mr. Smith, he's figuring, gee, if I can work together with this guy, boy, I'll bet you there'll be a nice position awaiting me with Molina, and I'll get the kind of money I deserved and should have gotten from these CNSI folk. So let's hitch our wagons together, Mr. Nichols. And Mr. Nichols says, yeah, Mr. Smith, let's hitch our wagons here and just see what we're able to accomplish. And so shortly after having that meeting with Mr. Nichols, in which they're conspiring to sabotage this CNSI contract and thereby have Molina be sticking around as the default service provider since they've been there for years, Mr. Smith, although not using his real name, he uses John Canigo, fires off an email to Jeffrey Branch, the regional director of the Medicaid services for this area. And we're going to give you a link to that email, and I'm going to comment briefly on it because I don't want to get too. You can go through and read it, obviously, but I want to continue on in the succession of what all's going on. But I've got a few points highlighted, and you've got the direct link to the email. It says, Mr. Branch, I am using a pseudonym in order to remain anonymous. Now, he knows that Mr. Branch would know who he is, but he's basically saying, hey, I got to use an alias here to remain anonymous because I am unclear whether I would be covered by any whistleblower protection, and I cannot lose my employment at this time. Now, I just told you he'd already said, hey, look, I'm out of here. Thanks for giving me this $50,000 success bonus. He didn't mention any of that in this email. He just says, ooh, I got to be careful. No, what he should have done was contacted an attorney before firing something like this off, who would have told him, you better make darn sure you can back up what you're saying in this email, and you better be very careful because you are treading on extremely dangerous ground, okay? Because he had an employment agreement with CNSI of dutiful loyalty in the whole 9 yards, and on the surface he's given the appearance that he is that loyal employee, but behind the scenes, here's what's going on. All right, so now Mr. Smith, a.k.a. John Canigo, he's not bashful, all right? Of course, that's what happens when somebody is dealing with emotion when they're angry and they're not looking at a situation objectively. So he says, I believe there have been a number of disqualifiers for CNSI. He said, I believe this is, well, I'm not saying this is fraud. I believe it's dangerously close to fraud. I believe the state of Louisiana and the federal government should vacate the award to CNSI and re-procure the Medicaid services contract. Oh, boy. I mean, like I said, Mr. Smith, he's not bashful. All right. All based on his little email here. I believe y'all ought to vacate this. And let's do this whole thing over. He also says CNSI can't obtain a performance bond. Well, that's kind of ironic because they did. All right, he said they couldn't. All right, and he said, and they knew it. And apparently he spent no time proofreading this because he left the word "new" (N-E-W) in there as was, or as is. And he said they knew it (N-E-W). Okay. He also said that they're on the special assets division of Bank of America, and Bank of America won't loan them another penny. Well, I can tell you, I was a federal examiner for 6 years, so I can say a few things like on this with regard to him making a statement like that. First of all, he should have never, even if that was true, okay, he should not have known it. The president of the company may know it, but I'm here to tell you, a president of a company, Mr. Ahmed, is not going to casually mention to Mr. Smith, oh, by the way, we're on the Special Assets Division of Bank of America, So, and I can tell you one thing, the banker darn well better not leak anything like that out, okay? All right, because there is serious lender liability for doing something like that. So I think you can probably surmise that it's probably that the financial position of CNSI was being greatly exaggerated. And I can also tell you something, that even as a 6-year bank examiner and as someone who worked in banks prior to that for 4 years, that just because you are on the Special Assets Division does not mean they won't loan you another penny. All right? So he has really stepped into the boat here. He has said they can't get a performance bond. Well, it's ironic they did. He has said, oh, they're in serious financial trouble. Bank of America won't loan them another penny. I mean, you read something like this and, it gets pretty spooky. Now I'm going to skip on down to the bottom where he also says that CNSI has received preferential treatment due to the relationship between DHH Secretary Bruce Greenstein and the CNSI founders. he said this has been reported, and then the next sentence is utterly bizarre. He spent no time, obviously, proofreading this, because he said, this is, comma, unfortunately, comma, appears to be true. That's why I say he couldn't have spent 3 minutes proofreading this. We're going to assume what he meant to say is, this appears to be true. That would have made it a whole lot simpler. I'm not going to suggest he was inebriated when he wrote this, but this is pitiful. To be taken seriously as someone who's sending something of this nature, and to have that kind of glaring errors. He also subsequently says that CMS should step in and cancel this procurement and demand that it be recompeted at a fair and unbiased manner. The word "and" is A-N. To proceed with the current contract award will be a devastating disaster for the state of Louisiana and the federal government. And here's the part you just gotta love. Thank you for your consideration and for your service to our country. In the end, remember that 1.2 financially needy Louisiana residents will be affected by this decision. And I'm sure he had those 1.2 million financially needy folk at the top of his priority list. And none of the fact, hey, I might can get a job with Molina if this thing craters. Never mind that, hey, boy, I'll tell you one thing, these people reduced my salary $50,000 and I'm no longer reporting to the president. Oh, I'm no. What's at the top of the priority list is naturally the 1.2 million needy residents of Louisiana. All right. So Mr. Jeffrey Branch gets this email on December the 8th. All right. So he forwards the email to the Attorney General's office. Okay. Not an unreasonable thing. And, hey, look, this guy's making the allegation. AG's office, I'm just going to let you know, here it is. Y'all may want to look into this. This guy says that we got some real problems here. All right, the AG's office assigns the email, sends it on, and assigns Mr. Scott Bailey. Boy, there's going to be a critical name to remember. We got some critical names now. Norm Nichols, the president of Molina, Steve Smith, a.k.a. John Canigo, and now we're introducing Scott Bailey. Boy, will he be a critical player. All right, Scott Bailey is your investigator for the Attorney General's office. Now, Scott gets this, and what's the first thing he does? What is the first thing Scott Bailey does? All right. He calls Norm Nichols, the president. Oh, no, so now we've got the Attorney General's office. They're seeing all that. Now, why in the round world would the first thing you think of to do would be, I think I'm going to pick up the phone and call Norm Nichols? Oh, okay. Okay, but that's what he did. He calls Norm Nichols, the president. And Norm Nichols says, look, here's the deal. I met with this guy. Oh, you met with him. Let me give you his telephone number. Uh-oh, John Canego, your anonymity is about gone now. Well, the AG's office is going to uncover that you're Steve Smith. The AG's office is going to keep that under tight wrap, too. Of course, the AG's office apparently doesn't know anything or well, let me not advance too far, because I'm sure everybody can realize this is getting interesting. So, he gives the telephone number to Scott Bailey. Okay? And so, on now bear in mind, Steve Smith has now moved on, a.k.a. John Canego. He's moved on. February 29th, 2012, he got his $50,000 success bonus from CNSI, and there probably was even a little going away party for him. And we so much appreciate your service, and we wish you all the best in Indianapolis, and all the while behind the scenes, here this is going on, okay? Conspiring with Norm Nichols, okay? And so, on May the 10th and May the 11th of 2012, 3 months after he leaves, Scott Bailey decides to pay a little visit to Steve Smith, all right? And Scott Bailey interviews him. And Scott Bailey produces a report. It's called the Canego Report, all right? I'm not going to provide that copy of that report just now, because that's going to get really interesting We need to save that for a subsequent installment. You just can't cover all of this. You can see now why. So we're going to break this into installments. Okay, so he prepares what is called the Canigo Report. It is an investigative report of what all transpired during his interview with Mr. Bailey on May the 10th and May the 11th of 2012. All right. Now remember, I told you there was a federal investigation, but it was quickly closed, finding no wrongdoing on anybody's part. Okay. Now let's continue to be in the role of CNSI's management. What all's going on? All right. I mean, I'm on the surface. Okay. September of 2012, boy, Department of Health and Hospitals says we are so thrilled. The Medicaid portal is online. It's working fantastic. It's within budget. You guys are doing a fantastic job. We are just absolutely thrilled to death. And so CNSI said, well, you know, we're very much appreciative. We're glad you're happy. We always try to satisfy our clients. And so some more time goes for February 28th of 2013. Once again, another objective is met. Another goal with regard to the online. It just looks like everything is happening fantastically with CNSI and with DHH. Now, by the way, DHH is also clueless of all of this. Norm Nichols, Steve Smith, Attorney General's office, they don't have a clue any of this is going on, okay, and they're just thrilled to death with CNSI's performance. And so DHA, now, as I told you, CNSI is trying to get these type contracts for other states, one of which happened to be Arkansas, okay? And so in early 2013, DHH sends off a letter to Arkansas, and they said, look, we cannot recommend these guys highly enough. They are doing, I'm laughing because this whole thing becomes comical at some point, although it's not funny to the CNSI folk, but, you know, we cannot tell you how delighted we are with them. They are doing a fantastic job. Well, this is early 2013, okay? You know, they come with our highest recommendation. Boy, now CNSI is really, you know, they have a right to kind of stick the checks out. I mean, women, this is good. I mean, Louisiana's pleased with us, and, you know, everything is just going great, all right? Now, let me just say this about Bobby Jindal. I spoke with an attorney, I'm not going to give his name, toward the end of Bobby Jindal's first term, and he said, look, everybody knew all along Bobby Jindal wants to become president of the United States. We all know that. And so he said, look, whenever someone draws attention to the Jindal administration, that person is terminated, okay? They're not going to sit down and sort out, you know, who is right, who is wrong, what's going on. You bring attention to us and you are out the door, okay? All right. So, no doubt Buddy Caldwell, who you might know doesn't have the greatest relationship with Bobby Jindal, he's probably aware of that being a propensity of Bobby Jindal. And so the AG goes, the Attorney General's office goes to Bobby Jindal. And they say, look, things are about to get hot and heavy around here, all right? And we're just going to tell you that we got some problems here, okay? And they advised the Jindal administration to terminate the contract. All right. Now bear in mind, here's CNSI. They're getting this glowing letter of recommendation. We're thrilled to death with all you're accomplishing here, you know. And so the Jindal administration, and by the way, you know, the AG's office also said, and by the way, we're going to be impaneling a grand jury to look into this wrongdoing. Well, you know, I think if I'm the governor, that's going to pretty well scare me. You know, here's the Attorney General, and they're doing it all. They're doing it all off of this, all right? And so, well, knee-jerk Bobby Jindal says, look, end of ball game. This contract's terminated. And I'm going to provide you with the link that will provide you, you know, that letter that was sent to CNSI. It was mailed. CNSI finds out they've been terminated by way of a press release. Now, all of it, you talk about being hit up against a wall. I mean, going along, everybody's pleased, letters of recommendation being sent out to Arkansas officials saying, hey, we can't praise these guys enough. All of a sudden, 180, bam, these guys are terminated. Okay? You know, that's you know, that's a rough blow, all right? And by the way, the contract with CNSI said that, okay, if you're deemed to not be performing in some respect, we're going to give you notice. We'll have 30 days. I'm not going to go into all the intricacies, but the bottom line is it's not supposed to be this business of, look, bam, you're out of here, okay? As you can see, the termination letter says that it's being terminated for cause. There is no elaboration, okay? Well, understandably, CNSI is not real thrilled at this development. Now, they don't have a clue what led to it, okay? They got this guy over here. They don't know this. And I'm just going to give you a little, because we're wrapping near the end of installment 2. They don't learn of it until, I believe it was April of 2014, okay? Now, bear in mind, we're in 2013, okay? They don't learn that Steve Smith was doing all of this until April of 2014. All right, it happened through some court filings that I'm not going to go into. So they're in the dark. What in the hell is going on? All right, I mean, they are totally in the dark. But let me just say this: Louis Oglesby has a reputation. I talked earlier about NFL draft choices. If in 1998, I believe it was 98. There was a situation where Mike Ditka, I'm talking about making an NFL analogy, Mike Ditka felt he was brand new as the Saints head coach, and he felt like Ricky Williams could literally be the savior for the Saints, and so he traded off the entire slot of draft choices, I mean every one of them, to move up 2 spots. The Redskins, I believe, were the beneficiary of that foolishness, but to move up 2 spots in order to draft Ricky Williams. Okay, he was criticized immensely for that move, and justifiably so. But my point is, Ricky Williams was perceived as, I mean, this guy is cream of the crop, best they come. We'll do whatever we'll do whatever we got to do to get Ricky Williams on our team. I said all that to say this: Louis Oglesby is that type of attorney, okay, to have on your team. All right, he is one that is worthy of trading off all the draft choices. And why did I say that? When they filed the lawsuit and CNSI said, okay, all right, this is the way it's going to work, we're going to get to the bottom of whatever happened here. And so they sued the state of Louisiana, Bobby Jindal, DHH. They said, if you think we're taking this sitting down, and who can blame them, you got another damn thing coming, all right? And so they filed a lawsuit in May of 2013. And of course, the Attorney General's office is saying, "Oh, no! Look, we got a lot of things we're gonna file under seal because we're conducting this investigation." Well, Louis Oglesby will be smart enough to know there's something going on here. Okay, there's something going on, and I'm gonna first apologize to Mr. Oglesby. I really wish they would permit us to bring cameras into the courtroom. Okay. They don't, as you well know, and so I'm going to provide the link of part of the transcript of a court hearing early on in this. This is July 30th of 2013. The lawsuit's only about, 30, 40 days old at this point. Now, bear in mind, they're in the dark. They don't know what in the hell has happened. All right, but here's the sharpness of Louis Oglesby. I'm going to go ahead and play the role of Oglesby and read off a little bit, because I've got it highlighted. This is priceless, okay? This is July 30th of 2013. And we're talking about, Buddy Caldwell's paneling this grand jury. Okay, you have to forgive me. I had to bring it a little close because this is a smaller size copy. And again, we have the link for it. But Louis Oglesby says, grand jury's not taking any legitimate evidence. Oh, and by the way, the AG's office, before I start reading this, let me preface it. The AG's office said, look, we've got to have this stuff under seal because the plaintiff attorneys over there, Louis Oglesby and Michael McKay, if we don't have this under seal, we have a fear that they're going to engage in witness tampering. All right, this is the Attorney General's office for the state of Louisiana accusing 2 well-respected attorneys that they would engage in witness tampering if we don't file this stuff under seal. Okay? I think you can know that's not going to set well with any self-respecting attorney. So it's with this in mind that I'm going to read off verbatim what Mr. Oglesby had to say about all this. They're not taking any grand jury evidence that's legitimate. The truth is, we should have had that a long time ago, and he's referring to the Kanigo report. That's been a public record. They filed an appeal. They did not even ask for an expedited hearing. I had to do that. They are not doing anything, and to stand up here and demean good people with things like witness tampering, that's not a lawyer I'm familiar with, and that's not an attorney general's office or a state government that I would be proud to defend of or sit with. I don't mean that because I'm loud, because I'm angry. I am angry. You do not insult people in this courtroom without any kind of proof, and then you give those people a chance to defend themselves. For the state, excuse me, and then he goes on to question, why is Buddy Caldwell coming in here and referencing Molina and defending them? The state in defending Molina that's costing thousands and thousands of dollars every month because they won't do it efficiently in an effective manner. When did they, referencing the Attorney General's office, become responsible for private entities? Let Molina come in here and defend itself. I am here to tell you, I think that Molina is behind all of this. I think the state is the handmaiden of all of this. I think CNSI has been taken advantage of in a most secretive point possible. The very idea that they find out that they've been fired by way of a press release that says because of wrongdoing, without ever having asked anyone from the state of Louisiana, hey, but without being asked by anyone from the state of Louisiana, hey fellas, this is what we heard. Do you have any explanation for it? To this day, that is conduct with which I'm unfamiliar, Your Honor. In law or just in regular life, I'm at a complete loss and am unfamiliar with that type of conduct. And I think he'd raise an excellent point. And that's going to bring an end to installment 2. I think you found it quite compelling, but I'll just say this to tantalize you a little bit for upcoming installments. Louis Oglesby is clearly upset with Buddy Caldwell's assertion, or his office's assertion, perhaps with David Caldwell. As far as I'm concerned, it's all the same. If the office is saying this about them, that they would engage in witness tampering. You ever recall the old saying about the pot calling the kettle black on this witness tampering? Stay tuned, folks. We're going to have more exciting material to present to you in an upcoming installment, in installment 3 of Robert Burns sounding off on Attorney General James D. Buddy Caldwell. Hope everyone's had an enjoyable weekend, and I'm looking forward to bringing you installment 3. Thank you so much.